Did you know that an estimated 70% of high achievers eventually face completely debilitating burnout? It's a wild statistic, right? Well, welcome to today's explainer. I am so incredibly excited to be your guide today. I really want you to think of me as your personal coach for the next few minutes as we unpack a truly fascinating framework. We're looking at a comprehensive guide titled Me Doing My Best and You Doing Your Best. Now, society constantly tells us that doing our absolute best means running ourselves straight into the ground. You know the drill, completely exhausting ourselves until there's literally nothing left in the tank. We wear that exhaustion like a badge of honor. But the source material we are going to explore today completely flips that script. It argues that personal excellence transcends that kind of simple brute force effort. It's actually about aligning your actions with your deepest values and your core purpose. So let's dive right into this and fundamentally change how we approach our own limitless potential. Right out of the gate, we need to address a trap almost all of us fall into. We so often confused excellence with perfection. But here's the profound truth you need to internalize. Perfection paralyzes. When you demand absolute perfection, you literally force your brain to obsess over impossible flaws. It creates this toxic environment of fear that prevents you from ever actually starting, let alone finishing, anything meaningful. Why? Because the standard you've set is mathematically impossible to meet. Excellence, on the other hand, absolutely liberates us. When you aim for excellence, you are openly acknowledging your very real human limits, but you are still fiercely striving for growth and improvement. It frees you up to take meaningful action without that crippling, heavy fear of making a mistake. You are aiming for daily progress, not some impossible, flawless ideal. To get us to that point of true excellence, here is our roadmap for today. First, redefining your best. Second, mindset and clear goals. Third, habits for peak performance. Fourth, overcoming inevitable setbacks. Fifth, elevating team collaboration. And finally, number 6, sustaining long-term success. Section 1, redefining your best, building the foundation. We really have to start by getting completely clear on what your absolute best actually looks like. Okay, so the absolute bedrock of this entire framework is self-awareness. I can't stress this enough. You simply cannot achieve excellence without it. Doing your best requires you to honestly and sometimes brutally know your strengths, your weaknesses, and your unique, quirky talents. But how do we actually get there? Well, it happens through regular, highly intentional reflection. It's about sitting down at the end of the week and asking yourself, okay, what drained my energy this week and what actually gave me energy? Or where did I naturally thrive and where did I have to force things? You have to be willing to look inward and evaluate yourself objectively. Without this deep groundwork, you are essentially trying to build a massive skyscraper on a foundation of loose sand. The taller you try to build your career or your life, the more unstable the whole shebang becomes. When you combine meaningful effort, the kind that goes well beyond just mere exhaustion, with a self-awareness foundation rooted securely in reality, and that liberating pursuit of excellence over paralyzing perfection, you create this incredible, powerful synergy. These components, they don't just exist in isolation. They constantly feed into each other. Your meaningful effort is actively guided by your self-awareness, and your self-awareness ensures you are always aiming for excellence, not perfection. When these elements are working together in harmony, it's like a symphony. You are truly setting the perfect stage for your best self to emerge completely naturally without all the terrible burnout. Section 2, mindset and clear goals, the internal psychology. Let's shift our focus from that base of self-awareness to actively programming our internal software for success. Our internal programming really consists of 3 highly effective tools. First up is the growth mindset. This is the core belief that challenges are just exciting opportunities and failures are merely data points for learning. This perspective is the literal fuel for your persistence. Next is value alignment. Look, when your daily actions match your deepest core values, you finally stop second-guessing yourself, and this really authentic, unshakable confidence naturally emerges. But let's really unpack the third tool, mental rehearsal. Think of Olympic downhill skiers who vividly imagine every single turn, every jump, and every landing of the course before they even leave the starting gate. By visualizing the run so intensely, they are literally firing the exact same muscle neurons while just sitting in a chair. You can do the exact same thing for a big presentation or super difficult conversation. By vividly imagining your desired outcomes in granular detail, you are physically training your brain and creating strong neural pathways for success before you even begin the task. It's a total game changer. Now, with that powerful mindset locked in place, you need a concrete personal development plan. Think of this as your personalized step-by-step roadmap. Step 1, document your vision and your goals with strict deadlines. Why? Because getting goals out of your swirling head and physically onto a piece of paper fundamentally changes your psychological commitment to them. It makes them tangible. It makes them real. Step 2. Build a robust support network. Identify mentors or peers who will hold your feet to the fire. You absolutely don't have to do this alone, and honestly, you shouldn't. And step 3. Track your progress consistently. Using daily journals or even just simple digital tools reveals the hidden patterns in your behavior, and it highlights exactly where you need to adjust your approach. Let's talk about the actual nuts and bolts mechanics of goal setting. The guide strongly recommends limiting your intense focus to just 2 or 3 key areas. Taking on too much simultaneously is a guaranteed recipe for immediate overwhelm and total inaction. We've all been there, right? You want to align these select goals with your values. And then, and this is vital, build momentum with what we call minimum viable actions. If your massive goal is to write a book, your minimum viable action isn't writing a whole chapter a day. Nope, it's committing to simply opening your laptop and writing a single sentence. Just one. It's a tiny, frictionless, consistent step that compounds dramatically over time. And of course, ensure every single goal is SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Section 3, Habits for Peak Performance, the daily mechanics. Okay, we've got the internal mindset built, so now we are stepping out into the real world to establish our daily routines. To truly master your daily mechanics, you have to understand the hard science of habit formation. The guide breaks down the neurological cycle known as the habit loop. Let's make this super concrete for a second. Think about your morning coffee routine. The cue is waking up feeling groggy. The routine is walking to the kitchen and brewing the coffee. The reward is that wonderful warm hit of caffeine and comfort. When you consistently pair these 3 things over and over, the behavior becomes entirely automatic. You literally do it without even consciously thinking about it. If we can successfully apply this exact same automatic loop to our work habits, willpower is suddenly no longer an issue. The more behaviors you can push into this automatic cue routine reward loop, the less conscious effort and precious finite willpower you have to expend throughout your busy day. Building these brand new habits requires some highly practical strategies. First up is habit stacking. This is where you attach your new desired behavior to something you already do every single day, like saying, okay, after I brush my teeth, I will immediately meditate for 2 minutes. This effortlessly hijacks existing super strong neural pathways in your brain. Next, you need to redesign your physical environment to make good habits utterly frictionless and bad habits incredibly difficult. Hide the junk food, put the running shoes by the door, and if you are still feeling that heavy resistance, use the 5-minute rule. Just commit to doing the dreaded task for exactly 5 minutes. The 5-minute rule actively tricks your brain. You see, the mental friction is almost always entirely in the starting. Once you cross that tiny 5-minute threshold, natural momentum takes over, the resistance just melts away, and you'll find yourself naturally continuing the work. Building on those automated habits, we arrive at the 4 pillars of peak performance. On one side, we have focused effort. This means using time blocking or the Pomodoro method to give fierce, ruthless, undistracted attention to a single task. But right next to it, and equally important, is the absolute necessity of intentional recovery. Listen to me on this one. True top performers know that scheduled downtime isn't a sign of weakness or laziness. It is a strict, non-negotiable biological requirement for sustained focus. You simply cannot maintain intense cognitive output without deliberately scheduling physical, mental, and emotional recovery time. Add in regular mindfulness for mental clarity to clear out the daily brain clutter, and visualization to constantly rehearse your success, and you possess a complete, holistic system for operating at your highest possible level. Section 4, Overcoming Inevitable Setbacks. Building resilience. Because let's be real, the journey is never perfect, so we must proactively build our armor. The guide makes it abundantly clear that resilience is not some innate, magical genetic trait you are either lucky enough to be born with or not. Nope, it's a deliberate, active skill that you must practice. I want you to think about this right now. When was the last time you honestly asked yourself, what can I practically learn from this failure, instead of just immediately beating yourself up over it? When you face a setback, you must consciously reframe it. You also need to relentlessly release your distractions. This means ruthlessly cutting out anything or even anyone draining your precious energy without contributing to your overall well-being. And when your willpower inevitably fades, you must consciously and deeply reconnect with your core why to reignite that internal, intrinsic motivation. When we are highly focused on achieving our personal excellence, we tend to be our own harshest, most unforgiving critics. But true resilience demands real self-compassion. You have got to learn to be just as kind and forgiving to yourself during a difficult experience as you would be to a close friend. High achievers notoriously lack self-compassion because they fear it will somehow make them soft or lazy. But the psychology shows the exact opposite is true. Self-compassion actually drastically speeds up your recovery time from a failure, whereas harsh self-criticism just prolongs your suffering and completely kills your motivation. By maintaining a broad perspective, leaning heavily on supportive relationships, and finding actual meaning in the difficulty, you bounce back so much stronger. Section 5. Elevating team collaboration. Expanding outward. Now let's see how our own personal excellence expands outward to elevate the people around us.
I want to pause here for a second because psychological safety is a massive, incredibly vital concept. If you want your team to actually embrace diverse perspectives and truly innovate, this is the absolute bedrock requirement. Google actually did a massive, multi-year study on this called Project Aristotle. And you know what they found? They found that psychological safety was the #1 predictor of a successful team. Period. It mattered more than raw talent, Ivy League education, or years of experience combined. People must feel genuinely, deeply safe to take big risks, to pitch wild out-of-the-box ideas, and to be openly vulnerable about their inevitable mistakes without any lingering fear of punishment or team ridicule. Without psychological safety, any attempt at collaboration is really just an illusion.
Now, when you successfully create that deep psychological safety, you unlock this incredible, powerful collaborative loop. You actively embrace completely diverse perspectives, which immediately leads to much more robust, pressure-tested decisions. And crucially, it allows you to develop what we call feedback fluency. Feedback fluency means taking the ego completely out of the equation. It is the highly trained ability to treat constructive feedback as neutral, incredibly valuable data meant to optimize the team's output, rather than perceiving it as a stinging personal attack. Mastering that fluency is the ultimate accelerant for growth, vastly benefiting both your individual career trajectory and the entire team's success. Section 6. Sustaining long-term success. The send-off. Let's talk about longevity and how to maintain this elite level of excellence over an entire lifetime. The scientific research is crystal clear on this one. Multitasking is a complete, total myth. In fact, studies show that constant, heavy multitasking can actually drop your working IQ by 10 points. 10 points! That is the exact cognitive equivalent of losing an entire night of sleep. It actively reduces your work quality and efficiency while skyrocketing your mental fatigue. Single tasking, on the other hand, is your ultimate secret competitive advantage. Batch your tasks and give them your singular laser focus. Furthermore, you absolutely must aggressively prioritize self-care. Getting quality sleep, eating highly nutritious food, and engaging in daily movement are not fun little luxuries you reward yourself with when the work is done. They are the non-negotiable biological foundations required for peak cognitive functioning. Oh, and finally, deliberately celebrate your progress along the way to regularly refuel your emotional tank. Which brings us to our conclusion for today. The overarching thesis of this entire guide is that doing your absolute best isn't some final magical destination you just suddenly arrive at one sunny day. It is a daily, deliberate, and highly consistent practice. It's the ongoing, sometimes really difficult choice to show up, deeply align with your core values, squeeze the learning out of every single struggle you encounter, and take meaningful action day after day after day. It is a lifelong journey of tiny, incremental improvements.
So here is your coaching challenge for today. I want you to take these 5 actionable steps. First, start small. Don't boil the ocean. Just pick one single principle from today's explainer to implement immediately. Second, stay consistent with it, even if you just use the 5-minute rule to get started daily. Third, seek support from someone you deeply trust to keep you accountable. Fourth, take the necessary time to reflect regularly on your progress and course correct. And fifth, above all else, be exceptionally patient with yourself. Remember how we talked about perfection paralyzing us? Compounding habits take real time to solidify in the brain. True, liberating excellence develops slowly, steadily, and patiently over time.
I am going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Your true potential is absolutely waiting to be unlocked. You now possess the blueprint, you deeply understand the required mindset, and you know the exact daily habits needed to get there. So, what is your very first step going to be today?